Hi, I'm Dave Adams. You're watching The Core Mechanic, and today we're looking at number 53 on Mike Selinker's list of top 100 games you must absolutely, positively know how to play. Bonanza. Hi, my name's Dave Adams, and I love playing games. At the 2015 PAX convention, one of my favourite game designers, Mike Selinker, presented his list of top 100 games you must absolutely, positively know how to play. The 100th game on the list was a challenge to play a game of my own design. With the desire to understand more about the hobby that I love so much, I've taken on that challenge to design a game. But first, I need to learn as much as I can about game design. I'm going to start by playing as many of the games on Mike's list as possible. Join me as I learn more about the core mechanic. Bonanza was released in English by Rio Grande Games back in 1997 and was one of Uwe Rosenberg's earlier releases as a game designer. It went on to quite a lot of commercial success, but since then he's gone on to develop such games as Agricola, Caverna, Le Havre and Patchwork. Much heavier games, much more involved games. This game is a very light game that plays in about 45 minutes and still has about 2 to 7 players. Players begin with 2 bean fields already active in front of them, but a third set of bean fields can be purchased later in the game. In the meantime, they're usually just set aside. They don't often come out. Now, each player is going to receive 5 cards. Now, the order in which they receive these cards is important, as the order cannot be shifted, it cannot be moved. So once you've collected your hand, you can't pick it up and move the cards around to put them into sets or anything like that. This is important for the first phase of each player's turn. At the start of each player's turn, you're going to look at the first card in your hand, and that card must be planted into your bean field regardless of what cards are already in the bean field. At the start of the game, it's pretty easy because the bean fields are clear. The second card may or may not be planted, so it's up to you whether you play it or not. Usually depends on what's active already within the bean field. After your first cards have been played, you move into a trading phase. Top 2 cards of the deck are turned over, and trades opened up to the table. Now, players can only trade with the active player. They can't trade between themselves at the table, only with the person who's actively having their turn. Whether the cards are traded away, given away, or whatever's left at the end must be planted into the bean fields. This even means having to uproot plants. Now, if you uproot a plant and you've got enough coins, you see down the bottom of the card, it has how many coins you get for each number of beans. If you have enough, you can take that number of coins just by turning the cards over and taking that way. You draw back up to 3 cards and your turn is over. Next person's turn. This game could very easily be seen as just a simple set collection game. You've got different beans, you have to put them into your field, you have to put the right sets together, and then you collect what you can in terms of scoring from each field. However, I don't think that that's the real genius of the game here. If it was just a simple set collection, it could be fish or snap. What I think the genius of this game is how Uwe has thought about the different movements or parts of the gameplay and tried to make them vital to each player. There's a couple of things going on. Firstly, you've got to consider the hand. The fact that he's thought about the simple idea of holding cards and made that significant to the gameplay has got to be at least worth noting. I mean, this idea of holding cards is just a regular part of a normal card game. But instead, I must now keep them all in order, and the order that I draw them is suddenly important. It also becomes important when I must plant that first card. I'm trying to get a certain set together, but before I get a chance to score big or even to score at all on it, I might be forced to uproot that harvest, score very little or nothing, to put that card down because I must plant it. So it becomes very important which cards are in your hand and which order they are. But to help that, there's a trading element. And I don't think the trading element is just an add-on. It doesn't feel like an add-on to the game to just make it more interesting. It actually becomes a really useful part of the game for ensuring that I've got the right cards in hand, or I've gotten rid of the cards that I don't need. This becomes essential. It's almost a lifeline to ensuring that I can score some points. Now there's those two elements, my hand and the trading part, and they're all impacting the bean field that I'm collecting. Now initially, when I started playing the game, I thought, well, trading, I've got to be really careful about how I trade. I want to be ruthless. So I tried to be really careful about not giving too much away and making sure that I got only the stuff that I needed instead of people throwing stuff at me that I didn't want. However, didn't quite work out the way I thought. I thought by being ruthless in the trading element, I was ensuring a greater consistency in my bean fields, which would have resulted in more coin. No, did not happen like that at all. Instead, people not wanting to trade with me or finding me too ruthless, weren't willing to help me out. I was stuck with cards in my hand that I had to plant. I was uprooting harvests way too early. I was not scoring the points I should be scoring. The interesting side of this is that it actually forces people to be generous. You actually see a form of economics that's dependent on me being able to give stuff away at times, because people just can't trade or don't want to give up certain beans, and you're just desperate to get that card out of your hand. So you offer it to them. Yes, I know this will score you points, but it's going to save me losing this amount of points. Becomes this big trade-off of what you're doing. And then, of course, there's the fact that each bean has different numbers. So do you collect the coffee beans, which there's lots of, or do you try and hopefully hold out for the red beans, which could score more, but could you be making more money by harvesting more stuff quicker there? There's a lot of trade-offs going on. So there's a lot happening. And the best part about it is that on each player's turn, each person at the table is invested in what's going on. Firstly, they're invested in what you're planting, because if I've got the red beans and I'm collecting those, I'm not as likely to plant red beans because there's so few of them. And I know that if you've got two, my one means that there's only now X number in the deck, and that may not be worth me holding out for. I'm also invested in your trading element because I desperately want to get rid of cards, and I'm also looking for more cards to put into my harvest. So there's all aspects of the game are not only working together, but are working together to keep the players engaged. And I think that's the genius of what Uwe has offered. Everyone's engaged throughout the whole turn, through every person's turn, but he's really taken that element of, this is a simple part of gameplay, such as holding cards, and made it meaningful, made it part of the experience, made it part of the challenge even. I think as a game designer, when I'm looking at my game, taking in some of those elements of what he's done, not necessarily trying to replicate them of, well, when you draw cards you must hold them in a particular way, but just trying to think through what mechanics, it's not just the mechanics going on of set collection or trading or those sorts of things, it's the simple things, like it's, what are you doing when you roll the dice? And I wonder if there's parts of the games that I'm missing, if there's, in the games that I play, if there's some sort of run-of-the-mill way of doing things that I could capture and make relevant to the game, so that doing that is no longer just something you do because that's what you have to do. It's now something you have to think about, and how I do it can impact the game. Now, I personally don't have a lot to offer in terms of critical feedback or negative side of the review, except to say this, that the game came out in 1997. It was very popular, hugely popular. And today, people seem a little bored with it. And I'm not entirely sure why. I quite like it. And I don't think it's the theme. I don't know if that's really what people are worried about. And I'm not sure if it's just the fact that it was played so much. However, there does seem to be a general sense of, with some of my gaming friends who did play it when it was very popular, a bit of exhaustion to them. They're not really that interested in playing again. I'm still at the early stage. Whatever it is, maybe I'll find out in the future. Whatever it is, I'm still enjoying the game. I'm still having fun with it, and I'll quite happily take it along to my school board game club and play a few people there. I'm not sure that the theme is thoroughly engaging for people, but I think it's a perfectly good conceit that generally adds a level of connection with the what we're doing and why we're doing it. So on that level, I think it's perfectly fine. In terms of longevity, I'm not 100% sure yet. We'll see what happens. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what elements of gameplay are yet to be exploited. Put your answers in the comments below. I'm Dave Adams. This has been The Core Mechanic. Thanks for watching.